My parents wanted me to throw out my dog and hand over my apartment to my brother. I found another way. Sunday dinners at my parents' house always came with a side of passive aggression and overcooked lasagna. Their home, a once cozy two-story in the suburbs, had slowly turned into a chaotic storage unit with furniture from the 90s, toys strewn everywhere, and a faint, permanent smell of baby wipes and microwaved broccoli. My brother John, his wife Emily, and their 2 toddlers had moved back in temporarily 2 years ago. Now Emily was pregnant with their 3rd, and temporary was starting to feel like a lifestyle choice. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping lukewarm lemonade, pretending not to notice the tension in the air. Mom hovered, adjusting plates that didn't need adjusting. Dad buried himself in the sports section of the paper like it was the only safe space left in the house. "Mary," Mom finally said, in the tone she usually reserved for church and emotional manipulation. "We wanted to talk to you about something. As a family." "That's never good." Emily smiled weakly from across the table. John avoided eye contact, which immediately raised a red flag. He was never quiet unless he was about to ask for money or had already crashed a car. I braced myself. "We've been thinking," Mom continued, sitting down and clasping her hands dramatically. "It's getting really crowded here. The kids need space. Emily needs peace. And John's been doing his best." "He's been great," Emily chimed in, robotically. "Exactly," Mom nodded. "So we all agreed that it would be best if maybe you moved back in with us for a while, just for a little bit, until they get on their feet." I blinked. "You want me to move back in here?" I glanced at the playpen in the corner, overflowing with stuffed animals and Cheerios. "Why?" "Well, you live alone in that big apartment," she said. "And you don't have children. It's not fair. John has a family. They need it more than you do." "Need my apartment?" I repeated slowly, in case I'd heard it wrong. Dad finally looked up. "It's a reasonable idea." "No, it's insane," I said, laughing nervously. "You're joking, right?" Nobody was laughing. "And your dog?" Mom winced like she'd just mentioned an ex-boyfriend who'd robbed us. "Charlie, right? Maybe it's time to, rehome him. Dogs and babies don't always mix." There it was, the punchline. They didn't just want me to give up my space, they wanted me to give up my life. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Charlie, my Labrador, had been with me through everything. Breakups, promotions, a soul-sucking startup job, my first night in my apartment. He was family. And now they wanted me to toss him out like last season's throw pillows? "I'm sorry," I said slowly, standing up and pushing my chair back. "But no, absolutely not." Mom's face tightened. "Mary, don't be selfish. You make good money. You're alone. They need help. I've worked since I was 18 to get out of this house. To build something for myself," I said. "And now you want to take it all back and hand it to John because I don't have kids and a mortgage full of regret?" Emily looked like she wanted to disappear into her half-eaten salad. John's ears turned pink. "You're being dramatic," Mom snapped. "It's just an apartment." "No," I said, grabbing my coat. "It's my apartment. And Charlie stays with me." As I walked out the door, I heard her mutter to Dad, "She'll come around. She always does." But this time, I wasn't so sure. I slammed the door behind me and leaned my forehead against it, exhaling like I'd just escaped a hostage situation. Charlie padded over, tail wagging softly, completely unaware that he'd just been unofficially evicted by people who hadn't paid a dime toward our mortgage. I knelt down and hugged him, pressing my face into his fur. "I guess we're the selfish ones, huh?" I muttered. My apartment was everything the old house wasn't. Quiet, clean, mine. Floor-to-ceiling windows let in golden afternoon light. Shelves overflowed with books I actually read, not decorative hardcovers. Plants I kept alive. A desk I worked from late into the night. This space was my sanctuary, my life. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and kicked off my shoes. Charlie trotted ahead, flopping dramatically onto the rug like he always did when I came home late. I poured a glass of wine, sat on the couch, and tried to replay the conversation without screaming. My phone buzzed. Mom, you didn't say yes, but I know you understand it's the right thing. I stared at the message, rereading it twice. The right thing. Right for who? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the window and let the breeze in. A dog barked in the distance, a car horn, someone laughing on the street below. Normal life. Life I had worked for, sacrificed for. I remembered all the ramen dinners, the side gigs, the nights I worked until 3 a.m. writing code until my eyes burned. I remembered skipping vacations, declining brunches, saying no to myself again and again just to scrape together that down payment. No one helped me. Not John. Not our parents. Certainly not Mom, who told me once, a woman in tech? Isn't that kind of unstable? But I'd done it anyway. I'd bought this apartment at 28, alone, with no safety net. And now they wanted me to pretend that none of it mattered. My phone buzzed again. This time it was John. John, hey sis, I know Mom can be intense. We're just overwhelmed. It would just be for like 6 months. Tops. We'd be so grateful. I put the phone down like it was toxic. 6 months. Tops. That's what they always say before it turns into forever. And still, guilt crept in like a leak in the ceiling. Slow, steady, impossible to ignore. Charlie nuzzled my leg, sensing my mood. You don't get it, do you? I said aloud, they think you're the problem. He blinked at me, utterly unbothered. I got up and walked to the bookshelf. On the top was a photo of me holding the keys to this place, smiling like someone who'd finally made it. I remembered how proud I was. How I cried in the elevator the first night, holding Charlie in one arm and a pizza box in the other. Now I felt like I was being asked to apologize for winning a race they never even entered. My phone buzzed one more time. Mom, it's not about punishment. It's about doing what's best for the family. You'll understand when you have your own. I stared at that last line for a long time. I didn't cry, but something inside me hardened. They weren't going to let this go, and I wasn't going to give in. Not yet. By Wednesday, the guilt campaign had gone nuclear. It started with voice notes. Long, breathy ones from my mother that began with heavy sighs and ended in shaky whispers. I just don't understand how you can be so distant, Mary. I carried you for 9 months. I raised you. I loved you. Is it really so hard to help your own family? I'm not asking you to give up your life, just to press pause on it. For your brother, for his children. They're your blood, Mary. One ended with sniffles. Real or performed? Hard to tell. My dad didn't send messages, he just stopped answering mine. I tried calling him, voicemail, then a text, not in the mood to talk right now. So now I was the villain. In their version of the story, I was the selfish one who wouldn't share. The cold daughter who chose her dog over her family. By Friday, I was running on coffee and adrenaline. The office buzzed with keyboard clicks and hushed Zoom calls. I took a break and headed to the lounge for a breather, where Adam was already leaning against the counter, stirring his coffee like it had offended him. Rough week? He asked, glancing at me with one raised eyebrow. You have no idea, I sighed, grabbing the strongest roast we had. He gave me a sideways smile. Wanna trade family trauma stories? I gave him a look. He wasn't joking. He took a sip. My sister guilt-tripped me into giving her money for a temporary emergency 2 years ago. She still hasn't paid me back, but she calls every week to remind me how much I owe her for being my big sister. I snorted. That sounds familiar. Let me guess. You have something they want, and now you're the ungrateful one for not handing it over. Bingo. He looked at me, more serious now. If you say yes once, they'll expect you to say yes forever. People like that, they don't forget the wins. I nodded slowly, the words sinking in. Later that evening, I met Sarah at our favorite cafe, a tiny corner place with the best chai in the city and the kind of mismatched chairs that made it feel like someone's kitchen. She was already there, scrolling through her phone with a look that could cut glass. Okay, she said before I even sat down. Play me the voice messages, all of them. I blinked. You want every manipulative second. Hit me. I pressed play. Sarah listened with surgical focus. By the end of the third one, she rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. This isn't a request, she said, pushing her cup toward me. It's a corporate takeover, dressed in mom guilt and baby photos. I know, but no, stop. Don't butt your way into being homeless. I wouldn't be homeless, I'd just be emotionally homeless. Worse, I looked down at the foam on my chai. Maybe I am cold. Maybe I should just be the bigger person. She leaned in. You already were the bigger person. You earned your space, your peace, your dog. This is not selflessness they're asking for. This is surrender. The cafe hummed around us. Baristas calling names, laughter from the table near the window. I sat in the noise, letting her words echo. Surrender. Was that what they wanted? I thought about my apartment, about Charlie, about the silence I worked so hard for. And for the first time that week, I started to get angry. Saturday morning started with a guilt bomb and ended with a firestorm. I was sipping coffee in my pajamas, Charlie curled up at my feet, when my phone rang. Mom? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovered. I knew I shouldn't answer. I answered. Mary, she started, her voice already thick with disappointment. We're really trying not to pressure you, but if you don't help, they might have to stay in Aunt Karen's basement. You know how damp it is down there. It's not right for children. I closed my eyes. Here we go again. You have a whole apartment, Mary. You and that dog sit in silence while your brother works 2 jobs and tries to raise a family, and you can't even give them a few months of peace? I opened my mouth, closed it, breathed, then came the next attack. A message from Emily. A photo of the kids. One missing a front tooth, the other holding up a crayon drawing that said my new room in crooked letters. They'd be so happy to have more space, she wrote. It would mean the world to them. Then came the text from John. Hey, we packed a few things already. Mom said it was okay with you. Hope that's still cool? Still cool? I stared at the screen like it was mocking me. I hadn't said yes. I hadn't said anything. They were moving in, without my permission, just assuming I'd roll over. Charlie let out a soft huff, nudging my foot. That was it. That was my line. I grabbed the phone and started typing. First to John. Do not bring anything to my apartment. I never agreed to this. You, Mom, and everyone else need to stop making plans around a fantasy. Then to Emily. Please don't use your kids to pressure me. I love them, but my home isn't a solution to your housing problems. And finally, I called my mother. Her voice was sharp the second she answered. Mary, what is this? John said you. I'm not giving up my apartment, I said, calmly but clearly. And I'm not giving up Charlie. This conversation is over. Silence. Then. So that's it? You'd rather let your family suffer than be inconvenienced? You have no idea what sacrifice means. No kids, no husband. What do you even know about real life? I hung up. My hands were shaking. I sat down on the couch, Charlie resting his head on my lap like he knew exactly what had just happened. Maybe I'd just blown up my entire family. But for the first time in weeks, I could breathe. The morning after I said no, I threw a weekend bag in the trunk, clipped Charlie's leash, and drove. No destination, just away. Away from the guilt texts. Away from the passive-aggressive voice notes. Away from the boiling pot of expectations my family had placed me in since I was old enough to carry them without spilling. 2 hours later, Charlie and I were surrounded by pines, the air smelling of smoke and moss. I pitched the tent slowly, methodically, like I was building a fortress against manipulation. That night, wrapped in a sleeping bag with Charlie snoring beside me, I stared at the stars and let the memories wash in. I was 7 when I gave up my birthday cake because John didn't like chocolate. 10, when Mom asked me to give him my Game Boy because you're the smart one. You'll find something else to do. 15, when I got into honors math and no one came to the award ceremony because John had a soccer game. You're strong, Mary, they'd always said. You don't need as much. I believed them. I built my whole identity around being low maintenance, reliable, understanding. I became the one they could always ask for things, because I never said no. Until now. Buzz. My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Hi, sweetheart, this is Grandma. Your mom is worried sick. Please don't make this into a bigger deal. Be a good girl and do what's right. I stared at it. Then another message, this time from a family friend, Pastor Mike. I heard there's some tension. Just remember, family comes first. You can always get another apartment. But you only get one brother. Are they serious? And then, the cherry on the manipulation sundae. A voicemail from Dad's boss. Not kidding. Hi Mary, I was chatting with your father, and he's really going through it right now. You know, family's everything. Just thought I'd say that. Hope you guys sort it out soon. I called Sarah. She picked up on the second ring. They pulled out the entire guilt army, didn't they? Even Dad's boss. Okay, that's war, she said, half laughing. Time to go nuclear. We drafted a message together, simple, professional, and terrifying in its clarity. To all concerned, my apartment and my life are not up for negotiation. Any further attempts to guilt, pressure, or coerce me, directly or through third parties, will be considered harassment and dealt with accordingly. Please respect my boundaries. I sent it to everyone. Then I turned off my phone. Charlie nudged my hand, tail wagging. I looked out at the trees swaying above us, the stars beginning to prick through the navy sky, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a daughter, or a sister, or a convenient solution. I felt like a whole damn person. Weeks passed, maybe even months. The silence was beautiful. Charlie and I developed a rhythm, morning walks, late-night movies, weekend hikes. My apartment felt like a home again. Safe, mine, full of breathing space and no guilt-tripping notifications. Then came the Whisper Network. A cousin mentioned it during a family Zoom birthday. A message from an aunt slipped through my spam folder. And finally, an awkward phone call from Uncle Dan, who never called unless someone had died or gotten arrested. They're not doing great, Mary, he said in a low voice. John's hours got cut. Emily's still not working. They missed a couple rent payments on that place they found. Credit cards maxed out. Lot of shouting in the house, from what I hear. I nodded silently, phone pressed to my cheek. They might lose the place, he added. And then, of course, they came. My parents showed up on a Sunday, unannounced. I was in sweatpants, hair up. Charlie sprawled across the couch like he paid the mortgage. My dad carried a Tupperware of lasagna like it was a peace offering. My mom wore her apology face, the one she used when she accidentally shrunk your favorite sweater or forgot your birthday, but still needed you to clean the garage. We were just in the neighborhood, she said, which was a lie, since they lived an hour away. They sat down like guests in a hotel lobby, stiff, uncertain. We know you've had time to think, my mom started. And we just wanted to ask if you'd reconsider, just for a couple of months, until they get back on their feet. I didn't flinch. I looked at them the way I learned to look at unreasonable clients in meetings, calm, kind, and absolutely unshakable. I've thought, I said, and I've decided I can help, but not in the way you want. My mother's eyebrows lifted, hopeful. I can help them find short-term housing. I know people in the city who manage rentals. I can even help them budget or talk to a credit counselor. But this apartment is my home. And Charlie, I said, glancing at the dog who lifted his head at the sound of his name, is my family. Silence. Not angry silence. Not explosive, guilt-drenched silence. Just the sound of two people who realized they couldn't bulldoze me anymore. My mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. My dad cleared his throat. Okay, he said quietly. We understand. They stood. No hugs, no tears. Just tired people finally realizing that family didn't mean unlimited access. As the door closed behind them, I sat down on the floor next to Charlie and rubbed behind his ears. You and me, bud, I whispered. We're finally winning. A few more months passed. The world outside didn't stop spinning, but in my little corner, it felt like I finally had control. My apartment was still just the way I wanted it. Cozy, quiet, with Charlie lounging at my feet while I worked from home or scrolled through endless pages of nothing. Work was good. I was killing it, as usual, with a few side projects that were keeping me engaged. No more guilt trips, no more tension. Just the simple joy of doing what I loved and living on my own terms. And then there was Adam. The flirty, charming colleague who always made work seem a little less like work. Nothing serious yet, but there were definitely moments, lingering glances, inside jokes. It felt good to be noticed again. "Careful, girl," Sarah warned me one day over coffee, her usual pragmatism making me laugh. "Next time they come for you, they'll want your car, because Emily's got toxicity issues or whatever, and the bus is just too much when you're pregnant with number 3. I snorted into my latte. "You're not wrong," I said, "but for now they know better than to mess with me." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "And you don't need to go out of your way to help them anymore. They have their own lives. They'll have to figure it out, just like you did." She was right. My parents, John and Emily, they stopped calling, stopped texting with all the subtle guilt-tripping. Things were quiet, and while I still saw them at family gatherings, the conversations were polite and formal, like distant acquaintances more than family. But that was fine with me. I was finally learning to live for myself. And Charlie? Well, he was living better than anyone. He didn't care about the drama, the stress. All he cared about was me, his walks, and the occasional treat. And to be honest, so did I. That night, like many others, I curled up on the couch with Charlie at my side. A glass of wine in my hand, a series on the TV that I didn't really care about, but the background noise was comforting. Charlie gave a soft sigh, his head resting on my lap as I absent-mindedly scratched behind his ears. It was perfect, quiet, peaceful. My life was mine, and for the first time in forever I wasn't bending to anyone's expectations. I took a sip of my wine, looking at the peaceful, familiar scene around me. Sometimes you have to say no to everything you think you should do to finally hear what you really want. I didn't give up my apartment, I didn't throw Charlie out, but I did throw out the constant need to please, the idea that I owed anyone anything. It was worth it, and in the end, that was all that mattered.